Good morning. My name is Don Michaelman, and I want to welcome you to the February 26, 2026 public hearing of the City of Prescott Planning Commission. If you could check your cell phones and see if they're on mute or off, would appreciate it there. I would like to have the commission members introduce themselves. We'll start off with Susan.
Good morning. I'm Susan Graham.
Good morning, Tom Davis.
Tom Riley.
Morning, Tom Hutchison.
Good morning, Jim Klazuski.
This is an open public hearing and is being videotaped by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of commissions members present is 6. It will require a majority vote of those present to pass a motion. Members of the public, when called upon, are required to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. First item on the agenda is the minutes of the January 8th, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Are there any corrections? If no correction, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Tom Riley, move to approve the minutes as submitted.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Jim Klazuski, I'll second.
All right, motion to approve and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, would you
Susanna.
please call her? I say it, but I forgot your name.
Okay. Commissioner Davis,
Approve.
Commissioner Graham,
Approve.
Commissioner Klazuski,
Approve.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Since I wasn't here, I'll abstain.
Vice Chair Riley,
Approve.
Chair Michaelman.
Approve. Next on the agenda is REZ 26-001 and GPA 26-001, a request for rezoning from SF 35 single family minimum lot size 35,000 square feet to BG business general on a total of 3.6 acres and a minor general plan amendment from low medium density residential to commercial for the expansion of an existing school to include grades 9 through 12. Location is 2980 Willow Creek Road, APN 106-21-237B. Owner, Arizona Conference Corporation, Seventh Day Adventist. Applicant is same church.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jacob Lund, Assistant Planner for the City of Prescott Community Development. Today, I will be presenting REZ 26-001 and GPA 26-001 for a rezoning and a minor general plan map amendment. So the request before you today is rezoning approximately a 3.6 acre parcel. It is currently zoned SF 35, single family, minimum lot size 35,000 square feet. The proposed zoning that they are asking for is business general, BG. A little background on the property. So the property has been used by the Prescott Seventh-day Adventists as a church since 1991, and as a school for grades K through 8 since approximately 2000. In 2025, the school was granted a conditional use permit to expand their educational facilities for additional classroom buildings. Part of that did require a revision of plat to acquire a piece of property to the west of their existing location. So for this request, the rezoning is needed to allow for the expansion of their education facilities from grades K through 8 to 9 through 12, since grades 9 through 12 are not currently allowed in the SF 35 zoning district. This is an area map showing the parcels. As you can see right now, it is one big parcel along Willow Creek Road. And then you have Nicolette Trail here going into Smoke Tree Lane here. This gives you kind of a better overview of what the actual imagery looks like. So originally the parcel was kind of cut right around here, and they acquired this piece of land and combined it with their existing parcel as part of that revision of plat that I had mentioned. This is the zoning map showing that they have neighborhood-oriented business to the north of them. That property located right about here is zone NOB. It is currently being used as a residence. You do have single-family zoning to the west, and then you also have single-family zoning south. However, this property adjacent to them is also another church. And then directly across Willow Creek Road, you do have a lot of business general zoning. This property is located in a commercial corridor, so business general, neighborhood-oriented business are pretty common zonings for this area. This gives you a little information on the revision of plat that was approved that I mentioned earlier. So July 8th, 2025, they did have their revision of plat approved and recorded with the Yavapai County Recorder's Office to essentially turn these two parcels into one large parcel. It vacated this parcel or property line, and now you have one much larger, approximately 3.6 acre parcel. And this was required as part of their new school building permits that they have submitted. The revision of plat was needed to combine the lines so that no buildings were across property lines. So these are the current expansion plans. It hasn't been approved, but this is what was on their permit for the classroom expansion on that new parcel that was combined. As you can see, they have a couple new classroom buildings here and a proposed classroom building here. As far as the residential properties that kind of abut this to the west, there is a flood zone or a floodway here and a flood zone, so there will be pretty significant buffering between this property and the residential properties to the west. This is the 2015 general plan land use map. As you can see, right here is the parcel in question. It is in the low to medium density residential 1 to 7 dwelling units per acre. However, directly across the street is where you start getting into your business general zonings and more of the commercial zonings. Right across the street is the Willow Tree Tapas Bar, I believe, and their zone business general. These are some snippets from our land development code that just show the existing use. So right now they're operating under a conditional use permit for grades K through 8, which is allowed in the SF35 zoning. But once you get into this map here, for the grades they're proposing 9 through 12, it is not an allowed use. So that is the reason for the rezoning request today. These are some pictures of the property showing that we did post the property. This picture to your right is going to be from their entrance along Willow Creek Road, kind of showing the existing building, their existing parking. These two photos, this is the northwest corner of the property. They do have a lot of extra land back in that area right now. I don't know exactly what they use it for, if it's for parking or not. However, this next picture is the parcel that was recently combined with their revision of plat. It is already fenced, as you can kind of see from this image, and this is approximately where the new classroom buildings will be. These do show the neighboring properties. So as I mentioned, you do have a business general directly south across Willow Creek Road for the Willow Tree Tapas and Wine. And then this property here is zoned neighborhood oriented business and currently being used as a residence. City staff from various departments have reviewed the conceptual project and have not found any issues, and it does appear to meet all city code requirements. Some issues for consideration that we look at when reviewing the rezones. I won't go through all of these, but I will touch on item A. The request does include a minor general plan amendment to the 2015 general plan land use map. And B, compatibility with the present zoning. The Seventh-day Adventists developed this property and has been using it as a church and a school since the early 90s. So we do feel it's in character with the district that it's in. And D, suitability of the subject property for uses permitted by the existing district. We aren't aware of any complaints. We didn't receive any complaints based on the rezoning request from anyone that we sent mailings to. And item E, they're not making any changes to the current infrastructure on the property. This is for the general plan map amendment. So the 2015 general plan designated this area for low to medium density, residential, 1 to 7 dwelling units per acre. The applicant requires a minor general plan map amendment from low medium density to commercial to allow for the proposed zoning requested and for the expansion of the existing use to include grades 9 through 12. This is our neighborhood outreach map. We did send mailings to property owners within 300 feet of this location. To this date, we have not received any public comments regarding the request. And that brings us to our 2 recommended actions. First would be move to recommend approval of GPA 26-001. And number 2, move to recommend approval of REZ 26-001. And that would conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions, and I do believe we have some members from the church here if you have questions for the applicant as well.
Any questions for Jacob? Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, well, first of all, tongue in cheek, who selects the photographs that you put up with this stuff? I mean, we're talking about a school and here we have kayaking on what looks like Watson Lake. Just curious.
We kind of use a pretty standard template, so
Okay.
you may see these photos
Just
again.
curious as to how that works. Serious question though. Why in the Land Development Code are the grades 9 through 12 put in a different category than the grades K through 8?
To be
If
honest,
you tell me noise, that's not an issue.
To be honest, I couldn't answer that question. The land development code we operate on right now was established around 2004. So that table that I showed you earlier would have been put in there around 2004. 2004, I was still in middle school. But
Then you should know the answer.
yeah, I also find it kind of weird because, as I was mentioning to our staff earlier, colleges and universities are allowed in the neighborhood-oriented business and business general, but grades 9 through 12 are not allowed in SF 35, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to guess.
Okay.
To answer Tom's question, I think that perhaps senior high school people drive cars, and that might present some additional reasons why you might want to treat it differently. Just a guess.
Tom, you had a question?
Yes, for staff. Jacob, when I first saw this application, when it was sent to us, can you go back to the zoning exhibit?
Yeah.
What cried out to me was, why isn't this neighborhood-oriented business instead of business general? And I understand that there's an extra step in the conditional use process, but we're tagging along a general plan amendment also. Can you expand upon why we aren't transitioning to more of a neighborhood-oriented business zone or use?
For this particular project, I talked with the applicant at the counter multiple times, explained neighborhood-oriented business was an option, business general was an option, weighed that if they did rezone to neighborhood-oriented business, it would result in another conditional use permit, which they just received a conditional use permit for their expansion back in October or November, very recently. So putting them through another conditional use permit just didn't seem like the right approach if business general does allow those grades by right. As far as uses between business general and neighborhood-oriented business, per the Land Development Code use table, many uses are very similar. You're not getting use in neighborhood-oriented business that isn't necessarily allowed in BG or vice versa. The main differences are more along the setback lines or building heights are more restrictive in neighborhood-oriented business. It's not so much more restrictive uses. There are certain things in NOB that aren't allowed, but for the most part, it's very similar across the board for the uses.
I can understand and sympathize with the applicant to be in a more less restricted zone. I understand that, and I understand the concept too. But it seems to me that because of the surrounding uses and the surrounding zoning, it would be more appropriate to be a neighborhood-oriented business zone change. But I understand your explanation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I also have a question for the applicant, if I may.
Any more questions for Jacob? Would the applicant like to make a presentation and possibly answer some questions?
Hi, my name is Lindsay Toyama. I am the Prescott Adventist Christian School treasurer, and I sit on our construction committee meeting, which is why I put in the application. What is your question?
Yeah, if I may, this is going to be a high school.
We would like to offer 9 through 12, yes.
How many students would you project to be in the high school?
Currently, with our 8th grade graduates, probably a maximum of 10 at this moment. We don't really have a huge amount of high school. We would like to offer to have high school kids, advertise to be able to offer high school kids. I don't see more than 20 at this moment since we're still new.
It's
far
good
as
to
that's
know
concerned.
because Commissioner Hutchinson mentioned the traffic aspect. Because,
So that really big lot that we have with like the gravel and stuff, that is our overflow parking lot when it comes to church on Saturday. When we offer food bank, that's where all of the extra parking is versus to add additional on top of our parking lot. Right now with our staffing, and I think we have a few extra during church time, we probably have like 10 cars right now in our parking lot, and our parking lot, I believe, can hold, if I remember correctly,
53.
150 or something like that total with the gravel.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Just want to clarify. In your packet, it indicates you'll have probably a total of 150 students, of which maximum maybe 40 for the high school. Does that seem correct?
Yes, from what I remember applying for, because if we're looking farther down the road, that is what we would like to be able to offer.
On the addition that you have on the map there too, what would be the trigger to build that addition out?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Up there in the map, there's a building already shown that you want to build for the high school. But adjacent to it is a projected additional building.
So our additional buildings are actually going to be set for our K through 6 grades to keep high school and elementary separated.
Okay.
So the new buildings that we're trying to build that we have an application for is for K through 6.
All right. Do you have a plan for pickup and drop off of students?
Currently, we have a plan set where people drive in and then they circle and drive back out. So that way we try and keep most of the people off of Willow Creek. We come in off of Nicholas Trail.
Nicolette.
Yeah, thank you. We come in off of that side, come in and out of that side, and then they circle around and then exit.
Okay. Have you had any challenges with that?
No.
Okay, so you think with the high school being added onto it, either with their cars or being dropped off, is not going to be any?
No, I don't see it being a problem. When parents come to pick up children, they have to hold up a sign saying this is who they're here for. So everybody is dismissed by the principal and walkie-talkie system to make sure that people are picked up properly and dropped off properly.
Okay. Is there anything you want to present to the commission?
I don't think so. I mean, I
Okay.
could read our letter if that's what you guys would like to hear, but I think everything has been stated perfectly with Jacob.
Okay. Well, thank you then.
You're welcome.
Any discussion?
I'd like to make a comment or two if I could.
Go ahead, Tom.
This is a continuation of the continuous or the conditional use permit in my mind. It's the follow-on step to allow them to do this, and it seems to me that it's appropriate to approve both REZ 26-001 and GPA 26001.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Tom?
I just want to make one comment that we probably should have made earlier and note that Councilman Garing, who is our liaison, is not here. So we are not being liaised.
Well, I don't think it's going to be held against us. I believe we have to have two motions on this, right, Jacob?
Correct. One motion for the general plan amendment and a second for the rezoning.
All right. Is there a motion concerning the general plan?
Mr. Chairman,
Tom?
Tom Riley here. I move to recommend approval of GPA 26-001.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Susan Graham, I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Davis,
Approve.
Commissioner Graham,
Approve.
Commissioner Klazewski,
Approve.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Approve.
Vice Chair Riley,
Approve.
Chair Michaelman.
Approve. Is there a motion concerning the rezoning?
Mr. Chairman,
Tom?
Tom Riley here. I move to recommend approval of REZ 26-001.
We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Tom Davis, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Davis,
Approve.
Commissioner Graham,
Approve.
Commissioner Klazewski,
Approve.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Approve.
Vice Chair Riley,
Approve.
Chair Michaelman.
Approve. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a continued item, LDC 25-002, Amendment to the City of Prescott Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.9.4.b, to update the parking requirements within the downtown zoning district. Applicant is the city. Tammy.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. So this is a continuation of a discussion that we had back in January 8th, 2026 in regards to parking in our downtown business district. So this map, we have two maps here. So the map on the left, is the map of our downtown district. And then on the right is our entertainment district. The entertainment district was brought up at the last meeting that it may have some parking restrictions or something. And so the entertainment district was created in state statutes to allow for jurisdictions to create these entertainment districts for liquor licenses. Usually it's around your downtown business areas where you see these entertainment districts. And then usually in these historic districts, you see schools or churches, which limits where liquor licenses could go. In the case of the city of Prescott, we do have Mile High Middle School, which would be right here, very close to the plaza. And without the entertainment district, we would not have whiskey flowing on Whiskey Row. So that was the intent of creating an entertainment district, is to allow the liquor licenses to be applied for in our downtown area that are close to schools and churches. We do have some older churches in downtown, and we have Sacred Heart in the Mile High Middle School, which would limit people being able to get liquor licenses within that area. So that was the whole concept between the entertainment district. Those were created in state statutes for older downtown businesses. So, but they did not discuss, in looking at the ordinance, which was part of your packet, there was no mentioning of parking within that packet. Are there any questions between the downtown business and entertainment district? Okay. So we're going to continue on to what was being proposed today. So the one thing we're going to take out is the commentary note in regards to, if once the parking garage is created, then we'll have the relaxation. We're going to take that out because we have the parking garage now. So per the discussion that we had at the last meeting, there was some discussion about the pre-1968 buildings. We did find an ordinance that was approved because we kept wondering where this October 1968 date was coming from. We saw it in two areas. And our planning manager, Alex Bramlett, did find an ordinance from October of 1968 for the downtown commercial area, because we didn't have zoning back then. But we did have a downtown business area that was designated, and that was to protect the historic buildings, the older buildings, so they didn't require parking for those buildings crushed before October 1968. So that was to help maintain and protect our historic buildings, and that has carried on through our code updates to maintain that. So that what's being discussed today is the taking out of protecting those pre-1968 buildings, that uses, new uses coming in would have to require parking on site unless they were part of these two sections. So when you came in this morning, there was this little packet. So the first page, uses impacted and will have to provide parking per LDC 11158 are office type uses. So some of these businesses you see downtown, you see lawyers, accountants, engineering, architects, government offices, sales offices, like real estate offices. With this change, any of those uses want to come downtown, they would have to provide parking on site. On the second page is the personal or service oriented. These type of businesses will also have to provide parking, such as schools, dry cleaning and laundromats, blueprint services, which we have one downtown. They wouldn't be allowed without providing parking. So we just wanted to let you guys know these are the type of uses that are going to be impacted. The ones that will still be protected, but even taking the 1960 out, were per LDC 1115E3A, sales oriented, so the type of retail type businesses would still be allowed. And then per LDC 1115E3C, entertainment oriented, such as dance halls, the bars, ice cream shops, and such, would still be allowed downtown without providing parking. So when this originally came before you, it was just looking at the off-street parking for apartments or residential type uses, which currently, without this change, are required to have parking on site, unless they're a pre-1968 building, which we saw with the 130 Cortez property recently. And then also, it would add also that hotels or resort type uses would also have to require parking on site. But with these proposed changes that's coming forward to you today, also includes taking away the protection of the pre-1968 buildings, that if there are certain uses want to go in those buildings, they would have to provide parking on site. And with that, a potential impact is going to hinder some businesses going into downtown unless parking is provided or a parking lot somewhere downtown provided. So we just want to make sure this is a concern from planning and for historic preservation. Parking is a national concern. I went to a workshop at the National Planning Association conference last year. It was a packed room, and they were talking about the relaxation of parking codes. A great example nearby is Flagstaff. Flagstaff has relaxed a lot of their parking codes, and it's gone out into the neighborhoods and causing problems. But in our downtown area, our concern is the pre-1968 taking that out. That was a protection for our historic buildings to not require parking for those buildings. But with these changes, it may compromise some buildings or uses in some of those buildings. So we just wanted to throw that out there so you're aware of that concern. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation. I'm free to answer any questions or if you need any other clarifications.
Questions for Tammy? Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things, Tammy. I noticed that you talking about in your presentation off-street parking, on-site parking, and then the ordinance that we're being proposed here, it talks about off-street parking. So the question that I have is, if I have a business that I want to put downtown and I can acquire parking elsewhere, but off the street and out of the right-of-way, is that something that's going to be allowed? I know I can buy my way out of up to 20 cars or something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, there's that in there. Yeah, there's a provision in there that says that you can a fee in lieu of parking.
Yes.
It's kind of like indulgences back in the Middle Ages.
Basically, you're renting parking spaces in the parking garage to compensate for that. I think that was the parking in lieu.
That's probably what there was intended, but and I don't have any problem with that. But if I find someplace else, I mean, not unlike an example would be the Hacienda. Mm-hmm. They have parking off-site, but it's also off-street. Mm-hmm. Would that be allowed with other uses in the downtown area?
Yes, as long as you can get an agreement between the tenants that they won't impact the businesses that's already there parking. But if they get an agreement between the two, that is allowed.
Okay, so I can provide, if I want to put a hotel on Whiskey Row and I buy a lot down the corner or something like that, or around the block, and put in a parking lot there, then that would be allowed.
Yeah, as long as it meets the distance requirements for building codes and for the zoning code.
Is there a distance requirement in proximity of, does my parking lot have to be within a certain proximity of my use?
Yes. If I have my zoning codes.
Oh, I don't mean to put you on the spot like that. I mean, off the top of your head, do you remember what it is?
No.
Close? Okay.
Oh, I think she found it.
Yeah, shared parking spaces must be located within 300 feet of the nearest part of uses served.
Yeah, 300 feet.
Okay, there's that 300 feet again.
Yep.
Wonder who came up with that. Okay, the other thing is parking in the right-of-way. Parking in the right-of-way is going to be for all the uses that you talk about in here, the uses that are still going to be allowed. They have their parking is essentially street parking. Mm-hmm. Okay, but no right-of-way parking will be allowed.
Correct.
Okay, now that's a change from the way it used to be. And I'm just wondering what precipitated that change. Because when I had my office downtown, I rented from the city parking spaces out in front of my office in the right-of-way.
So when we look at the code, the way it's written, so basically we're looking at, the ones that shall not be required, parking, off-street parking within the downtown shall not be required for stores, restaurants, retail, and then the uses defined by these two sections. So those two sections are the back two pages, the entertainment-oriented businesses and the sales-oriented businesses. But we wanted to make sure that we caught the ones that are impacted with this change that will have to require parking. So personal service-oriented. So when your business went in, it was in an older building, a pre-1968.
Yeah.
So that's where it was protected. You didn't have to require parking in pre-1968.
Oh, no, I was required to put in parking. I was required to have off-street parking for my business, and it was 6 parking spaces is what I was required to have. And that's the way it was at that particular time. Mm-hmm. Ramona Maddox, I think, was back in the day. That's what I was working with her. But I'm wondering what changes occurred in that I provided the 6 parking spaces out in front of, in the right-of-way, off the street, but still in the city's right-of-way, and I paid a fee each year to lease those spaces. Is that available now?
Yes.
So I can pay, Chelsea knows where I'm going with this. So now if I wanted to, I can pay the city this in lieu fee for taking right-of-way that's off the street, but I can use the right-of-way as required parking. Did I say that convoluted
I
enough?
I'm making sure that, and I'm also looking at our legal to make sure that I'm going to look at this right too. It says, so the in lieu fee may not be used for more than 20 parking spaces, and that's for in the parking garage. The in lieu fee may be used at the time of change of use. In addition, required site subject to the provisions of section 494C2. 494. Give me a second.
I recall going through a time when when Mark Natupsky, back in the 2004, someplace in that area, he came to me and approached anybody who had parking in the right of way, which several businesses in the downtown area have that, and he wanted to charge us the same amount of money for renting those spaces as they charge for renting a space in the parking garage. We basically all told him no, and gave him a good argument for it. Now the fact that we built our own spaces, he didn't build them. The city didn't build them like they did the garage, and he saw the light. But the point is that it has been up until, I remember 2020, that 2019, that my business was downtown, and we used that right of way, and we were allowed to use the right of way for parking, and it counted towards our required parking. Okay, and I guess if there's something in the air that has changed that.
Not that I can see.
So as it relates to the in lieu parking, that would be contractual with the city. And so any types of in lieu parking that you have, I don't see in the code, and I can certainly do a bigger deep dive for this board to make sure that there's nothing else in there. But my understanding of this code is that it is a contractual agreement that is made when you are purchasing. And so that could be different for each business. I don't think that it's required that it has to be the actual parking garage. So I think, as to your question, Commissioner Riley, I think that there could be something whereby you could, in lieu of, purchase a few in front of your store. That would be something that's going to be made on a case-by-case basis as it relates to anybody who's approaching the city for that type of parking arrangement. So I don't know that I've seen anything in the code even recently that's been changed that says that that's not allowed. It's just that it hasn't been exercised.
Okay, somehow we need to make that clearer for the folks in this particular ordinance. I mean, the in lieu, perhaps something along with the definition of that. In lieu is not just the parking garage. In lieu is when you have public property and you're using public property that's not on the street for required parking, that is something that can be allowed.
So the counter to that, and I'm just wanting to make sure we throw all of the situations, is that we have a lot of small business owners that may not have that extra income to accompany that. So if you have an architect or an engineer that's just beginning, or you have a real estate office, they would have to pay that extra fee that up front they may not be able to accommodate. But it is something they would have to think about, and that's something we would tell them from the very beginning, is that, you're going to have to provide parking on site, or you're going to have to do an in lieu fee to purchase parking spaces for the city.
I can guarantee you that a struggling business starting would rather rent something than actually build a parking lot for their building, for their use. So I think that, I understand where you're going with it. I'd just like to have that clarified to some extent.
We can do that.
Other questions? I need some clarification, Tammy. The challenge I had last time this came up was if we had something new that came in, a new building that was going to have overnight parking, they were going to require, and this could be a hotel, could be an apartment, could be a condo, they would have to have on-site parking. My concern was someone came in and bought an old building, and it was, say, a store, and they want to convert it to apartments or condos, they wouldn't have to require on-site parking.
They will, under the current code, they would have to, unless it was a pre-1968 building.
That's what I'm talking about. My concern was the older buildings, the pre-1968. Someone can come in and just buy one of those, put it into condos, and they wouldn't have to worry about parking for the people who own the condos or rent an apartment or whatever. That was a concern I had. If you're going to convert an older building in there, what you're doing is you're not really being fair, in a sense. Someone coming in new would have to put it in. Someone who converts an old building wouldn't have to put it in. And that's my concern. having other businesses required on-site parking downtown doesn't really concern me. It's the overnight residential ones that concern me. Now, is this taking care of that, or are we creating problems for somebody that I wasn't concerned about?
With this change, they would have to provide on-site parking or do the in lieu parking, no matter what the age of the building is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if other commission members have that same concern or not, but it doesn't seem to be fair to me.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with that. I'm also concerned about I mentioned before, the unintended consequences of this. Let's take there's not much vacant lots for development in the downtown, the core downtown area, but there is, let's say, Cortez and Goodwin, that undeveloped corner. Someone wants to come and put a hotel or apartments there, whatever the case may be. We're talking about parking demands that either have to be provided on site, in the structure, under the structure, next to the structure, and still get the allowable yield that's provided by the zoning code. So I can see a problem down the road where you can't buy the parking nearby. Someone comes in and says, well, by code, I'm allowed X amount of units on that property. I'm going to have to provide those parking spaces on site. So I need also a special use permit to go to like 100 feet. Okay, so I can get the amount of yield on that property and still provide on-site parking. I mean, that's a kind of a crazy scenario in a way, but we've seen something like that kind of happen, where there's been height adjustments due to whatever the case may be. The corner of Cortez and Goodwin, I believe there was a height issue there because of the underground parking. Am I not mistaken?
Oh, the old Hood City Hall redevelopment?
Yeah, right.
They,
Right, but
they met the 48-foot height.
Okay.
The special use permit was required for the massing, the size,
Okay.
and the redevelopment in downtown. Same with
I could be
130
mistaken,
Cortez.
but my point was concentrating on the example that I was giving. That's one of my concerns.
If I may, I think that one of the things that this is going to do in terms of unintended consequences, it's going to restrict the kinds of development that happen in the downtown area.
Or redevelopment.
And a redevelopment in the downtown area. And you go back to the Death and Life of the Great American City, Jane Jacobs, perhaps one of the most important things for safety and continuity in a downtown area is apartments, people living above the shops, that kind of a thing. So there needs to be people living in the downtown in order for the downtown to remain viable. That's one of the things that, to some extent, is an example of why this downtown has some issues and has been addressing that lately. But I think that the unintended consequence is going to be is that you're going to have the restriction of uses. You're not going to get people moving into the downtown area, and I think that that's a potential problem. But I understand also that you have to have places for people to park.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chelsea Walton, Community Development Director. I really appreciate the dialogue because it's super important to consider. And just I wanted to offer a couple of thoughts in thinking about unintended consequences and what we may be looking at in the future with removing the pre-1968 building exemption. Just related to what Commissioner Riley was saying, should uses be restricted? We're trying to find a balance between the historic preservation of older buildings downtown, but also allowing the building owners to exercise their private property rights and get tenants in there that will pay the bill. So just something to think about related to the restriction of uses in the older buildings specifically is situations in which a building owner cannot find tenants tenants or may have to pass up really good business deals because the uses so restrict the parking requirement, or the parking is so restricted. So I would hate to see something happen where an older building is demolished in favor of building something that's more suitable with a parking area. Because I think the intent of the downtown and the character is more of a walkability rather than a vehicular focus. And I think you can see that in the Historic Preservation Master Plan now, that you want zero setbacks. You want the building to take up all of the footprint of the property so that it gives you that downtown feel. So I just wanted to offer that as something to think about with building owners, and encouraging uses to come in that contribute to the overall feel of downtown, but not so restrict that a building owner has to take drastic measures, if that makes sense.
I think you pointed out very, very succinctly. I'll give you an example, though. I mean, also building codes and fire codes are also restricting the uses in the downtown that we can do. An example being the old Roar Bloom, I don't even know what's there now, Keller Williams real estate office on the northwest corner of Montezuma and Gurley. That's the old Neil Arms. And basically that whole building, the upper two floors, were all residential. And that's the way it was historically. And that building is a prime candidate for downtown residential development. Yet it has zero ability to provide sufficient parking. So that building would never be able to become apartments, would it?
Not with this change in the code. And actually under the current, well, it was pre-68, so yeah, that's a historic use, so they would still be exempt. Well, with how it is now, under the code now, because it's a pre-1968 building, they would be exempt from the parking requirements.
But with the code
this
changes,
change,
with this change, they would not be allowed to.
Correct.
And just again, it's just an example of what possibly could happen. I'm not aware of anybody wanting to go in there and make the structural changes necessary to bring that building into an apartment complex, but it's just an example of an old building downtown that could be something, but this will say, no, you can't be. And so it's that restriction that I'm a little bit concerned about with this, and I don't know the answer. I really don't know the answer. Now, could they find some place within 300 feet of their property? Possibly. It's possible to do that. Tear down Mike Phan's house.
I can like that.
So this was brought to you as a kind of a quick fix while we're in the process. So in the next year or two, we're going to be updating our land development code. And the parking section is something we're going to be looking at to see what changes need to be done. And so the original fix was just for the overnight stays, the overnight uses, such as apartments and hotels. This kind of takes it to a whole nother level of what can be impacted downtown. So you have kind of a couple of options here. You could recommend how it is presented before you today. You could also recommend approval of how it was before with keeping the 1968 provision in place.
I would simply, if you're looking to make a temporary change, I think that perhaps we should just address that which is the elephant in the room, and that's the fact that the hotel in Whiskey Row doesn't have parking. And that is something that people are trying to fix. So what if we just made a simple thing saying that we're going to change the code that says that if you have an overnight stay in the downtown district, you need to provide parking off-street. Period, end of story, one sentence, a run-on sentence, but one sentence, and you'd be done and you wouldn't have to do all of this. Why would that not work?
So that was the original proposal that was brought to you on January 9th. And then,
No, that one was a little bit different. It was several pages of stuff in there and different uses and everything, if I'm remembering. It was not as simple as though if you have an overnight, change the code, just if you have overnight stay capabilities, apartments, condominiums, Residential?
This is where they added, notwithstanding the foregoing, all uses which require overnight parking, including hotel, resort, and similar uses shall comply with the city's parking requirements as described in. So that was in there previously. So the only thing that was crossed out before was the other hospitality-related uses shall not be required to provide off-street parking. And then the other changes, the new changes were just regarding the 1968 buildings. But that sentence, this sentence was in there before.
This sentence, this paragraph is the sum total of all the changes that we're making. And all the rest of this stuff is back up to try to give us some information as to what the consequences of a decision might be made.
Correct. The rest of that parking and loading code, so that where it talks about part in lieu fees, we kept that in there. This is the only section that is proposed to be changed. Was this section 2? So before we'd had that sentence in there, it was just mostly to deal with the overnight stays. To include the hotel, resort, and those type uses. But after the discussion at the last meeting, we came back with this about the 1968, pre-1968 buildings.
Okay, thank you.
So if we go with this method here, like we looked at before, someone comes along and buys the old courthouse across from where the new hotel's being built, and want to make it apartments, they don't have to provide any parking. Is that right?
Yes, they will. No, they will. Well, if that ever happened, which I doubt.
Well, I'm trying to give an example of a building.
So if they took that building and refurbished it, it's a pre-1968 building, no, they would not have to provide parking.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of room on site there for parking, but.
I think he's talking about the post office, not the
The
court.
post office.
Oh, okay.
But they had a courthouse
I was
above
going to
it.
say.
No, but they had a
Okay.
courthouse above that post office.
The federal building.
Federal
The
building.
federal,
Yeah.
okay. Thank
Someone
you.
comes to the federal building.
You got to be careful how you use the word courthouse here in Prescott.
Well, that's true.
You can
The
get
building
shot for
across the
using it correctly.
street to the
Old
west
City Hall.
of the new hotel being built,
Yes.
yeah,
So-
someone bought that. It's pre-1968, and they want to make apartments. They wouldn't have to have parking on site. If we just changed it to basically new buildings being built. Alex, you want to comment?
I do, thank you. So that specific example, if we keep 68 in there, so pre-68, you don't need to provide parking. That is correct. If you put an apartment in the old post office, they don't need to provide parking. If it's a new structure coming in, they will not be exempt under the pre-68 code, and they would need to provide parking.
So I see we're in a quandary here that we want to protect our older buildings, but in doing so, we may cause more problems with parking downtown. And unless we get more parking spaces, like another parking garage, that's a problem we're going to have.
Well, I mean, so and if it's a problem now. So this isn't changing. The only thing this is changing from what the code reads now is hotels. Well, apartments are already, required to have parking unless it's a pre-1968 building. But for the older buildings, way it is downtown now, the only thing that would change is the new hotels coming in. And possibly apartments, but we haven't seen a lot of those. But I mean, for new structures, but basically, because those were exempt before, even if it was a new structure, because it was hospitality. So with this change, hotels or resort or those type of overnight uses would require parking on site, no matter how old the building is.
So basically, we're trying to close the barn door after the horse left. You don't have to answer
In
that.
all fairness, that barn door, that horse has been gone a long time.
And horse stables are not allowed in downtown business, just to throw that out there.
Boy, this is.
Chairman, can I make a few comments? First of all, I'm late to this party. I didn't participate in the January meeting, so this is my first attempt at weighing in on this. When I went through this material yesterday, it brought back memories of living in Asia and Europe and how precious parking is and how much it costs to park. But the bottom line where I came out was that if you're going to stay overnight here, if you're going to book a hotel room here, you expect hot water, sheets, soap, and a place to park your car, period. To not have parking and expect to fill up your rooms and essentially command all of the on-street parking that precludes the transient people coming and going is a mistake. So I think this is exactly the right thing to do.
When you say you think exactly the right thing, this one or the prior one?
Making hotels, resorts, people that spend the night, those businesses must provide on-site parking.
For even pre-1968 or just new ones being built?
68 doesn't mean anything to me. That should go away.
So under the way it was proposed before, that even in the pre-1968 buildings, anything with overnight parking would not be exempt. Right? Wait.
Yeah, so if I may interject, so we're kind of talking about three separate ideas, right? The one that we have right now and currently would allow for any buildings that are pre-1968 that are in a permitted use within all of the categories that are listed. If they wanted to come in and change it into any type of business that would require overnight parking, that would not require them to provide any parking for overnight guests. We brought to you, Community Development brought to you in January the idea of removing just the hospitality-related uses in retail, and then the underlined bold portion that says notwithstanding the foregoing, all uses which require overnight parking, including the hotel, resort, and similar uses shall comply with the city's parking requirements as described in section 6.2 off-street parking. So the provisions that were brought in January still allowed for the 1968 non-requirement as long as it wasn't something that required overnight parking. If you were covered under the 1968 for a permitted use within those particular areas, you wouldn't have to require parking unless you needed overnight parking, which is what that bold and underlined is. When we talked about it in January, there was comments made as far as equity goes, as far as pre-1968 versus post-1968. And that was where the idea came in to then remove any type of differentiation between the two buildings so that somebody coming in after and getting a building after 1968, or even if we were just removing the protections of that 1968. So anybody coming in this proposed would have to require they would have to provide that parking if you have the overnight requirements. I hope that makes sense. We have three kind of very distinct, although they're all merged together. So if I need to be more clear or if I didn't make sense, let me know and I can try to clarify that a little bit more too.
So if I understand this correctly, with this particular change that we're talking about anybody, anytime, any building in the downtown business district that wants to convert to an use that requires overnight stays has to provide off-street parking someplace in the vicinity of that use. That's what this is saying. The other way would be older buildings, the way we kind of have it now. Older buildings, 1968, which was just chosen, that's when they made the decision in 1968. So they were saying anything before us, is great. Anything comes after us sucks. So the 68 is somewhat ridiculous, but it doesn't really matter. It's there. The other thing is if we leave the 1968 clause in there, then somebody the way we had it in January, then anybody who has an older building downtown that wants to put in a hotel or apartments or something requiring an overnight stay is allowed to do it without providing off-street parking. So
No.
the question,
No, so if it doesn't matter the age of the building, if someone wants to come in and do any use that requires overnight parking, will be required to meet the parking requirements.
per this one,
No, per the previous one, the January one. So that's why it says, notwithstanding the foregoing, all uses which require overnight parking shall comply with the city's parking requirements. So that's saying that, yeah, pre-site 1968, except for uses that require overnight parking.
That's not how I interpreted it in our discussion before, because I thought pre-1968 was exempt. If you went in and converted a store over to a hotel, that it would be exempt and would not have to have overnight parking.
So if we're talking the January revision was, it has essentially everything that you had up there except for, so if you see 4 uses in buildings, constructed from 1968 to the present, retail stores, restaurants, and then it said, and other hospitality-related uses in retail, service, and business categories is defined under. We took out other hospitality-related uses. That was what we had taken out in the retail, and then we added the bold and underlined paragraph that you see on the screen before you, which says, notwithstanding the foregoing, all uses which require overnight parking, including hotel, resort, and similar uses shall comply. So in the January version, it still allowed for protections for the pre-1968 buildings that were permitted uses, but we took out hospitality-related uses in retail, and then we added the overnight parking would still, if you needed overnight parking, then you still needed to provide it.
So the January 1, if you built a new building, you have to have it for, say, a hotel. You have to have the
Correct.
parking. If you converted one prior to 1968 from a store to a hotel, it would also have to have parking?
Correct. But if you converted something from pre-1968 to a retail store, you would not be required to have that parking.
That's not a problem. I'm going to go home.
I think the reality here is that, again, the hot button that's going to go up before council is going to be requiring hotels to have parking, whether they're in an old building or a new building or any building. Hotels and all that stuff is going to be downtown. So, you know, I'm going to say we can just go with this one, taking the 1968 out and just going with this one. So in that regard, I mean, you still had an opportunity to talk, but at least I'll get this on the table right now. I recommend, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve LDC 25-002.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Tom Hutchison, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just prefer to eliminate, unstrike permitted uses within buildings constructed prior to 1968 for uses building constructed in 1968 to present. I would like to see that unstruck.
Well, we have a motion on the floor right now and a second for what's proposed right now. So we need a,
Right.
Now, what is proposed right now is affecting more businesses than just hospitality.
yes.
And I have a challenge with that. If the information we receive from our legal counsel that our January 1 would affect new buildings and conversions of old buildings into hospitality, I could support that. That was where my challenge was, and I don't know how it didn't match at that time, but it, somehow we didn't match. So this one I can't support because I think it goes too far. But just what we had before in January, I can support. Other thoughts?
Then let's vote and get this one out of the way and get the other one back up again.
Jim, do you want to say anything? All right, we have a motion and a second. Please. Oh. Anybody from the public want to make a comment? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Davis,
No.
Commissioner Graham,
Approve.
Commissioner Klazewski,
No.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Approve.
Vice Chair Riley,
Approve.
Chair Michaelman.
No.
Yes, it failed.
Motion fails.
So do you have two options? We can either move it forward with a recommended denial, or we can make another motion if you prefer the January version.
I think you bring it to council and just let them deal with it. They're going to do it anyway.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, it might be valuable to know that the council understands the dilemma of the split vote here.
And we would explain that at the meeting.
And we would have representation from the commission there. I nominate Tom. Did you want to make a comment, Alex?
Only if it's helpful, because we're talking about this one and referring back to January 8th, we can pull it up too. I've uploaded if it is helpful for the conversation, it's a lot of different underlined strike through to work through. So we can pull up the January 8th version as well for just visual to help with that dialogue if needed.
Does the commission want to look at the January 8th one again and see if we want to make a motion on that or not? Tom?
Since I wasn't here, yes, I'd like to see that.
I have nothing else scheduled this morning.
Ian, I just labeled it backup presentation, please. Thank you.
Or we can go back to the January 9th folder and it should still be in there for the LDC update.
While we're waiting, can I make a comment?
Sure.
I guess one of the really big concerns I have is we're trying to promote tourism and we're trying to promote people coming into downtown. So if you have a lot of projects that are being redeveloped into hospitality apartments, whether they're buying spaces, providing on-street parking, whatever, if they're using existing parking, that's decreasing the spots available for the community to use. I know we personally don't go downtown when there's any big events because we can't park. And that's when your hotels are going to be full. People are going to invite their friends over. And it's a major issue. If we want to promote tourism, we have to be looking long-term at other parking solutions. And if hospitality is going to be required to pay a fee to acquire spaces, that needs to be put aside to provide a permanent, long-term parking solution.
So in front, up on the screen right now is what was the language from January 9th. So as we saw, as Elaine pointed out, the only thing that was struck out was other hospitality related uses in the retail, and the notwithstanding The foregoing all uses which require overnight parking, including hotel, resort, and similar uses shall comply with the city's parking requirements as described in section 6.2 off-street parking. So that never changed, that bold highlight. That's the new sentence that was put in the January version to require off-street parking for those type uses.
This version, just to make sure, would a new building being built downtown as a hotel would have to have their own parking.
Correct.
A building that was built in 1910 and is converted from a store to, or offices to a hotel would also have to require their own parking.
Correct. And I'm looking to make sure she's nodding her head too.
Discussion on this? Motion?
Well, discussion, this satisfies the requirement that Susan just pointed out, that people that come to stay here overnight, they need to be provided with a parking place that does not preclude everybody else from parking and coming and going. So this does that too.
This just protects the other uses in the downtown area from not requiring parking, like the office type uses and stuff.
The poor starving architect that started his business downtown won't have to do that.
One comment, I mean, when we discussed this back in January, one of the concerns was whether or not one of the older buildings could be torn down to provide the parking that's being required. So if we go back to January, is that still going to allow that to happen? And we're trying to preserve our older buildings.
With this provision, if someone wanted to put a hotel, they bought a property and they want to put a hotel there, and they have a property next door that's a historic building, there is provisions in the land development code. If they meet that, they can demo the building. Hence what we're seeing downtown now with where the proposed hotel is going. It's not a contributor. There's other criteria in the historic preservation master plan that if they meet that, then it's not that a protected, they can demo it. So that doesn't take away any of those provisions.
So we're opening the door then for the whole nature of our downtown area to change.
If someone wants to put in a new hotel, yes, besides the ones that have been approved.
If someone just bought the building and didn't like the building, they could tear it down right now and build a new store.
If it's not a contributor and that meets the criteria, yeah.
Well, even if it is a contributor, or if it is a nationally historic building or anything like that, there's a variety of different loopholes, you might say, that people can jump through to get a historic building taken down. And, you know, and in this town with the historic buildings that I'm aware of, which is a good number of them, structural is a big issue. I mean, like those buildings for the Whiskey Row Hotel, those buildings are about ready to fall down anyway. They would never meet anything close to even a never mind. No matter what in both of the proposals, Susan, that was recommended here, there is nothing precluding me from tearing down a historic building downtown, and you really can't stop that. You really can't take that away unless you're willing to buy my building from me, because that's my private property. And if the city says you can't tear down your private property for whatever reason, you know, then that's, I mean, eminent domain starts to play a role in that whole issue, and that's a taking. So you really can't prevent somebody from tearing down an historic building in the downtown area. You can try. There's a certain safeguards in place there. It's very difficult to do it with like if you wanted to tear down the post office, you'd have a fight on your hands, but ultimately you could probably win.
Again, if it's helpful for the conversation, I think the idea is to encourage owners of historic properties to maintain their property, allow them to safeguard as much use as we can to allow them to rent their buildings. I know from a historic preservation perspective, there are grants that SHPO sends our way that we can encourage the building owners to apply for to help them with maintenance, et cetera. But to your point, we do want them to invest in these older buildings to maintain the character of downtown. And one of those ways is to not prevent them from a lot of the uses that are currently available to them. In my opinion, for what it's worth, this would accomplish both things. You know, they're still allowed to have the preclusion of the 1968 for the other types of uses, but also safeguard from the influx of lots of hotel and overnight stays. And I think Tammy mentioned it earlier, but with the upcoming Land Development Code revisions, we are going to study this matter with a consultant and see what other communities are doing, specifically other communities with historic downtown. Because again, we want owners of historic buildings to keep them and maintain them in a really good contributing way.
Mr. Chairman, I for one, would really like to see that done that way. And it seems to be we're trying to Band-Aid a situation until we get to that point. So
That's exactly right. That's in a
I think
nutshell.
that I was going to make a motion to adopt this previous recommendation, but I would like to maybe see the split vote go forward to council and get those comments forwarded to them.
Is there a motion concerning section, well, what we have on the screen right now?
We really can't make a motion on it because it was not agendized.
You can make another motion to amend what was previously given to you. So you had in front of you what was presented today, and you can amend what was presented today if you wanted.
So it's on the agenda, we just change the wording.
Yeah, I believe I actually meant, my comment was, prior to the vote, was that the current recommendation, I would like to see it go forward without the strikeouts pertaining to the 1968 provision. So that's still on the agenda.
And that's a modification that you could recommend as a recommendation, that move to approve with the modification of,
Changing the wording back to what it was in January.
we would know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Is there a motion concerning that?
God. I guess I'll recommend what I previously, yeah.
So you want to recommend approval of the proposed with an amendment to put back in the pre-1968 protections.
Correct. That's
That was proposed in the January 9th meeting.
Correct.
Is that okay?
I think that should be good enough in terms of, I think we all know now, what you're looking at right now was what was proposed in January. So if you are comfortable with this language, this would be the language that would then be taken to council.
I'm just making the motion to see how it flows, but that's the feeling I have about this particular action.
If need be, we could go back to that previous screen that has what was presented today. I don't know if that's an option that we could get that back on the screen. I know that we're jumping back and forth, but.
I think we need to clarify the motion, at least for myself. You want to go take what we have now and revert the wording back to what it was in January.
Correct. That's fine with me, yeah.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Jim Klazuski, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, please, no? Okay. Would you call the roll?
Commissioner Davis,
Approve.
Commissioner Graham,
Approve as a Band-Aid.
Commissioner Klazewski,
Approve.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Approve.
Vice Chair Riley,
It doesn't make any difference. Approve.
Chair Michaelman.
Approve.
Motion passes.
Do we get a raise for this? Any updates?
Firstly, we will have a March 12th meeting, so you guys can expect to see some updates from us for that. And then the other portion I'd like to bring up is the new thing we're doing with the House bill changes. Just a refresher, there's a lot of plat processes that are now administratively reviewed. As that was being brought through the council process, it was requested that we bring what we're approving to you all as a matter of maintaining transparency, not for public hearing purposes, because they can't have a public hearing. So I've included in your packets, there's 2 this time. And let me get it pulled up here. You do have it in your packets. You want me to put it up on the screen too? Okay. Hey, Ian, can I connect my laptop, please? So the first one, actually, I think this is the second one, is Lafferty Ranch final plat. We approved that administratively. The preliminary plat was brought through end of last year, so it's pretty recent. And so staff reviewed and determined, for added context, this is off of 69 right across the street from Costco. So the final plat was in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat. There weren't any changes, and so all the departments reviewed, engineering, fire, everyone have signed off, and so have staff, and so we move forward with that approval. A final plat is not something you all would have seen previously. It was just an item that got placed on the council consent agenda. But I have this one. If there aren't any questions, or are there? I can go to my second one.
What was a major change on it?
There
Looking
were
at that,
no major changes.
I didn't think there was, because you
No.
got the apartments in the front and
Yep.
4 lots in the back for the houses.
Correct. And the second one is just a minor kind of lot reconfiguration. Zoom in a little bit. Again, this is a revision of plat, and similarly, once staff reviewed administratively, even prior to any of the changes, engineering's looking at it, fire, everyone, and then once it was through the kind of staff approval process, we placed it on council consent agenda. So this is not something that would have typically been brought here, so if it feels new, it kind of is. So yeah, they just did some lot reconfiguration, pretty minor. There was a lot line here and they relocated it, some easement things just to clean up the lots. And so this was a revision of plat that staff have approved. And those are the only 2 that we have done since our last meeting. So just an update on those for you.
Any questions for Alex?
It's nice to know that the P&Z Convention can contribute to being transparent.
Oh, well, we'll let that one go. Okay, thank you, Alex. I appreciate this. Even though we're not voting on it, it's nice to know that, what the changes are, because sometimes it brings forth new thoughts. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other updates then? If not, we're adjourned.